Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range to talk about AR-10s. AR-10s chambered in 308, or you can get them in other cartridges, but I'm talking about 308 AR-10s today. They're kind of American as AR-15s in terms of popularity. I mean, the AR-10 is just a great rifle. It's what the AR-15 was originally based off of. This is original Eugene Stoner design. This is a Brownell's replica of the original AR-10, or one of the variations of it. And it's just an outstanding rifle, but it chambers that big old 30 caliber slug. And that's something that I personally like. Many of you have asked me, are you still using 308 as a primary go-to rifle? And based upon where I live out here, yeah, it makes more sense than 5.56. When I lived in the city, 5.56 made more sense. But out here, if I need to reach out and touch something, 308 is the cartridge of choice for me. I also like 6.5 Creedmoor, but typically in bolt action rifles and things like that. So the AR-10, what options are out there for you? A lot of people think that AR-10s are just horribly expensive, and if you're talking about Daniel Defense rifles or POF and higher tier rifles, yeah, you can get $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 very quickly, especially when you get into nights and things like that. But there are options, and today I want to show you two options that come to market right around $1,100, $1,200. So that makes them competitive with some of the mid-grade AR-15s out there, so they're not horribly expensive. Of course, you still have to deal with the ammunition costs and the weight differences and things like that. But let's talk about the AR-10 today, and these two options I think that you might want to consider if you're looking at a 308 big bore battle rifle, which is what we used to call them. Now this is that Brownell's rifle I was talking about earlier, and this does have some Federal 150 grain ball in it. I want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. It certainly helps us out quite a bit. All right, so let's do a little shooting with this bad boy. Charging handle on the top. Very cool rifle. Too bad these are no longer being made, but you can find them out there. And where's my favorite target right now? There she is. Recoil isn't that bad. It's totally manageable. And this rifle kicks a little bit more than some of the others that are out there. So let's go take a look at a couple of rifles I brought out for you guys to check out today. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So the two rifles I brought out this afternoon are the Ruger SFAR and the Palmetto State Armory Sabre 10. Now these two rifles represent AR-10s that are pretty much different from each other, and that's something that we'll get into in today's video about there not being a real standardization on AR-10s, but they're quite a bit different from each other. They bring different features to the table. Both rifles have features that I like, but the SFAR and the Sabre 10 are roughly the same price. You're going to look at about $1,100-ish for an SFAR and about $1,200 and some dollars for the PSA. So the PSA is going to be slightly more expensive than the Ruger. So we'll take a look at these rifles. They're pretty similarly configured. I do have the new Hexion titanium can on the Palmetto State Armory rifle. That's the suppressor you see here. I have put a 1 to 10 power Sig Sauer LPVO on here, and this is much lighter weight than the Trijicon I originally had on there. And so this has helped me to bring down the weight on this rifle somewhat. This one has a high back pressure Griffin armament suppressor on it, not a flow through like the Sig suppressor. So this one's going to kick a bit more, but this is generally a very soft shooting rifle. And then on this one I have a Primary Arms PLX 1 to 8 power optic LPVO, very lightweight. And of these two optics, the Primary Arms, they do sponsor the channel, but the Primary Arms has clear glass, has an ACSS reticle in it. It's a really nice optic. So, but both of these are going to be lightweight, trying to keep the weight of the rifles down, and both these rifles aren't as heavy as they might look, especially on the case of the PSA. So let's take a look first at the Ruger. Let's take a look at the Ruger first, talk about some of the features of the rifle, then we'll take a look at the Sabre 10. All right, so the SFAR, this is one of my favorite rifles, and this has a lot of features that kind of step out of the norm in terms of what we're used to in a conventional AR-10, something that the PSA Sabre 10 represents here this afternoon. This is completely different. And what makes it different? Well, first of all, this rifle weighs about 6.8 pounds. And so that's unloaded. So that means this rifle is going to be not much heavier than a standard M4 carbine. So that is really impressive. So if you take a look, starting off back here, we have an adjustable stock system like you would find on pretty much any modern AR-10 or AR-15. But where this thing really shines is right here in the upper and lower receiver. This upper and lower receiver are considerably shorter than your standard AR-10. They've shortened the receivers considerably, and it's about the same size as a standard 5.56 AR-15. That helps in not only the size reduction of the rifle, but the weight reduction of the rifle. When you go inside, the bolt and carrier are considerably different. So let's pop it open here really quick so we can take a look inside. So the diameter of the carrier is the same as an M4 or standard AR-15 and 5.56. The bolt and carrier is basically AR-15 sized. Now you're going to have a different bolt itself, so you notice it has 2 ejectors in there. And the material is not Carpenter's 158, which is a standard material for a mil-spec AR-15. This is going to be a proprietary, what they call a super alloy, and they liken it to something like Inconel. So it's going to be harder and more robust than Carpenter's 158, which makes sense because they're trying to make this weapon stand up to the rigors of being a shorter, lighter bolt and carrier group and still operating on the same principles as the AR-10, which in this case is the standard, what I call stoner gas system, or the internal piston system, what many of you might know as direct gas impingement. You can see the gas tube up here. So this is basically the same size as a standard 5.56 AR-15. And I'll show you what that looks like next to the PSA's bolt carrier. So you'll see that there is a considerable difference in size. So being an AR-10, obviously it opens up just like a standard AR-15, uses standard AR-15 trigger components in here, and SR-25 magazines, in this case have a PMag in there. So it uses a lot of standard components. Out here we have a lightweight rail, an adjustable gas block, the internal piston system with the gas tube you can see up here. You have a 4-position gas block. It has 0 for off, and then 1, 2, and 3 as your settings. 1 would be a suppressor setting, which I have it on right now. 3 would be basically adverse. 2 would be a standard setting, okay? And we are using a high back pressure can on here. This is a Griffin armament can, and so that's why I have it on the suppress setting. When I'm using an OSS or a flow-through can or a low back pressure can, I can get away with running this on its standard 2 setting because it's not overgassing the system. So this rifle's kicking a bit more than it normally would because I've chosen to put that high back pressure can on there. But that adjustable gas block is critical for AR-10s because I've had a lot of problems over the years using high back pressure cans with AR-10s that didn't have adjustable gas blocks. So it's nice that it's on there. So this rifle will work, and that's why I have a high back pressure can on here. It will work with just about any can you can stick on it, which is a positive feature. Now you'll notice that it doesn't have 1913 rails all the way out. It kind of breaks here, and then you have a 1913 rail out here in case you want to put an iron sight out here, and then you have a little bit of run out that goes past the receiver onto the handguard here. I would prefer to have a 1913 rail out, but I think they've probably removed that material as part of the weight reduction program. Now, if you look at the profile on the barrel, it's not a super lightweight profile barrel. And this is a 5R barrel. It's made out of 4140 steel, and it is cold hammer forged. And so that 5R barrel does give this rifle really good accuracy. We have a whole video on this rifle. This rifle is capable of 1 MOA or better groups using match ammunition, federal gold medal match, an exceptionally accurate rifle. So you can get this rifle in 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, and you can reach out and touch things with it because it does have the accuracy capabilities to do so. You'll notice it does have a forward assist on here, which is A2 style, brass case deflector. We still have a port cover. You'll notice they've taken some creative liberties with the design of the rifle. Over here, we have standard fire controls, ping pong paddle. What you will know or notice that is missing are ambi controls for the bolt stop, bolt release. None of that's present. So they left that out probably for cost and maybe for weight, although adding ambi controls wouldn't add a whole lot of weight to the rifle. So I would like to see it with ambi controls. And that's probably the only ding I have against the SFAR is the fact that it isn't full ambi, because a rifle that is this full featured, you would think that full ambi controls would be something they would add because about 13% of the population is wrong-handed. So I would like to see that change made in future releases of the rifle. Now you can use standard parts again in here, like charging handles and fire control groups. And so you have that crossover capability that makes the AR-10 practical. And you're going to see a lot of that in the Sabre 10 as well. All right, so let's take a look at the Sabre 10 and see some of the features of that particular rifle and then highlight some of the differences between this rifle and the Sabre. All right, So let's do a little bit of shooting. We'll start off at 150. I really like the optics on this. The ACSS reticle and the clarity of this PLX optic is just so much better than the SIG. And also, this is a second focal plane where the SIG is a first focal plane, which just means that my reticle gets smaller or bigger depending on what my magnification level is. All right, 150. And we'll run it out to 200. So, yeah, even though it's got a bit more punch to it because of that suppressor, it's still a very pleasant rifle to shoot. You can shoot these things all day long and they're not going to beat your shoulder up or anything like that. There was a time when I was a younger man, people used to claim 308 was a high recoiling cartridge. By today's standards, it just isn't. I mean, I consider 375 Chi-Tech to be a high recoiling cartridge. I mean, I don't even really think 300 Win Mag is all that high recoiling. So it just depends on what you're used to shooting. But 308 for me is a pussycat, and I think most of you watching this video would be able to manage the 308 cartridge just fine if you decide to switch over to it. So the PSA Sabre 10, this is more or less in the same line or same vein as the AR-10 we opened up the video with today. So it doesn't have that shortened receiver. This has the full-length AR-10 style receiver, and that you're going to see in the length in the upper and lower here, and you're going to have a little bit of overhang. When you look at it next to the Ruger, you'll notice the Ruger's receiver is shorter. So it's been shortened quite a bit. And so that's where a lot of the weight savings for the Ruger comes from. But the benefit to this is if there is a standard AR-10, this is going to be closer to it. Where the Ruger uses proprietary bolt and carrier type stuff, this is more standard AR-10-ish. So you can find other bolt carriers out there, bolt and carrier groups for this rifle out there. So let's start off back here. We have a standard furniture setup. So we have a standard buffer tube back here so we can use, in this case, B5 furniture. And that's one of the things that's interesting about the PSA, where the Ruger has all Ruger manufactured parts on it for the most part. This has some upgraded parts to it. The B5 furniture would be an example of that. So this is slightly more expensive than the Ruger, but it also has some upgraded components, and we'll point those out. Now, they don't have a weight on the website, but I will tell you, and I don't have a scale out here that'll weigh it, but this is a heavier rifle than the SFAR, probably a pound or more heavier. So we do have a forward assist on here, A2 style, just like the SFAR, and we use a standard castle nut here, which is properly staked, but it has an upgraded Radian Raptor ambi charging handle. So this is different from the Ruger. Ruger has its own kind of minimalistic charging handle. This has the Raptor on it, which is ambi, which is a nice upgrade. So that adds to some of the cost of the rifle. On the selector lever, we have a Radian selector lever on here that's ambi, which is not present on the SFAR, but you can put an ambi selector lever on it, obviously. You can put a Radian on there if you wanted to. But that is the only ambi feature on here. We do not have an ambi bolt stop bolt release on this particular rifle. As you can see, it's a moss green Cerakote finish on the receiver. Then we have some Raleigh 8000 colors like here and on the furniture. And so it gives you that multi-tone look, which I think is actually kind of sharp. Now you'll notice it has anti-walk pins on it, which is another upgraded feature. This does use standard AR-15, AR-10 triggers, so you can put a Geissele trigger in here or something like that if you wanted to. No ambi mag release. So really, again, the only ambi feature that they've added is the charging handle and the selector lever, but still upgraded. So coming forward, and I'll show you what the bolt looks like here in a moment out of this compared to the SFAR, but coming forward, we have a 1913 rail across the top, and unlike the SFAR, we have a 1913 rail on the handguard that extends all the way out, and this is 15 inches in length. Both these rifles have 16-inch barrels. This one is a 416R barrel in it, so, and it's been bead blasted. At first, I wasn't sure when I picked it up if I was going to like the bead blasted barrel. I'd prefer to have black, like Cerakote. But it's actually kind of grown on me. I think it looks rather sharp with the color combination of the rifle in terms of the finish. This does have an internal piston gas system in it, Stoner system, or what you guys might know as DI. Both rifles use a mid-length gas system. This one is also adjustable. But where the Ruger has 4 positions, 0 through 3, this one is more infinitely adjustable. It just has a little detent pin in there, and it comes with a long Allen wrench. You come at it from the front of the handguard, and you can tune it and adjust it for the rifle, the cartridge, or with or without a suppressor. So that adjustable gas block is nice to have, especially when you want to run a suppressor, especially with AR-10s with high back pressure cans. So just like the Ruger, that's going to make this rifle better to use with a multitude of different suppressors. Both rifles are threaded 5/8 by 24, and I have a direct thread SIG can on here. This is one of their new Hexium silencers. Now, the handguard on this, where the Ruger is very minimalistic, there's a lot of lightning cuts on it. This is an M-LOK handguard. So it has a 1913 rail that comes all the way out. You have that additional material there. We have additional material in the handguard because they weren't going for weight savings, they were going for functionality. All that combined is going to make this rifle a bit heavier. The handguard, the bigger receivers, and then let's take a look at that bolt carrier group. And this is going to add some weight too. And this is where Ruger saves some weight. The bolt and carrier on this are chromed. Look at the size difference between the two. Huge difference right there alone. So this adds considerable weight to the PSA. This is one of the features I really like about the Ruger, is that really minimalistic bolt. Now you'll also notice on the Ruger it has a bunch of ports in it to vent gases should you have a failure. So safety appears to have been a concern with Ruger when they were designing this. That's why they've used upgrade steels. That's why you see ports in here to vent off gases. And this is more standard AR-10-ish in size and weight. And this is a chunk. This thing's heavy. The chrome is really nice. I like chromed bolts and carriers. Makes cleanup very easy. It's almost self-lubricating, almost. But it does make cleanup much easier, especially when you're running a suppressor. You will notice that it uses standard AR-15, AR-10 fire control components. So if you want to upgrade those, you can, but this trigger that comes in here is a very nice trigger. It's DLC coded, and it's upgraded from just a standard mil-spec trigger. So the PSA has some nice features. It certainly has upgraded components, things like the Radian charging handle and trigger, or selector lever, I should say. B5 furniture, nice Cerakote finish. And in terms of accuracy, if you guys want to see a dedicated accuracy video, this thing is very accurate. As accurate as the SFAR. Even with 150 grain ball, this thing's putting down nice little tight groups. So you're going to get MOA, maybe better, out of this using the ammunition that it likes. And usually that's 168 grain Federal Gold Medal match or something like that. So in terms of accuracy, they're going to be pretty evenly matched. In terms of weight, the Ruger is going to have the advantage. In terms of compatibility, with other components that are out there, spare parts down the road, things like that, the PSA is going to have the advantage because it uses a standard AR-10 type upper and lower receiver and other components. So people have asked me on X, where I was talking about the rifles, this particular rifle, and what prompted this video, comparing these two, people were asking, what do I prefer, the SFAR or the PSA? That's tough because it depends on what I'm going for. Just in terms of something I would carry around, use as a go-to rifle, things like that. I like the SFAR, mostly because of its super lightweight and smaller size. I also appreciate the Sabre 10 because it's a more conventional AR-10. Shoots like a conventional AR-10, very comfortable in the fact that I can pick up aftermarket components. I'll get more components available for this particular rifle than the SFAR. That's kind of appealing. So it's hard for me to pick, but I think if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably lean towards the SFAR. But I like them both. I enjoy shooting them both, so it's going to boil down to personal preference. Let's start off at 150 yards. I have the gas system perfectly tuned on this rifle because it has that infinitely adjustable gas system, unlike the Ruger, which is just the 4-position. I have this perfectly tuned with this, it's not a Huxworks, this is the Hexium from SIG, which is a low back pressure can, much like the Huxworks suppressors. And so this thing is very pleasant to shoot. The SFAR with its high back pressure can is a little bit less pleasant to shoot, but this does not recoil much at all. Go out to 200. So if you set the rifles up correctly, let's say, you're going to find that they're extremely pleasant to shoot. So doing quick follow-up shots and things like that with 308 will be possible. And a lot of that's going to be due to the fact that you can adjust the gas system, because a lot of rifles you'll get that don't have adjustable gas systems are just going to be overgassed for reliability purposes. So that's one of the reasons I like adjustable gas blocks. So if you guys are in the market for an AR-10, I would recommend either of these rifles. We've had very good luck with both of them. As I mentioned, the Ruger I have in 2 chamberings, 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor. I do have a 6.5 Creedmoor PSA Sabre 10, did a video with it. It's like an M110 at home video, and this is my second AR-10. and both have been exceptional rifles. Both have been extremely accurate and reliable. So you're going to pay a bit more for the PSA, and I think that's probably because of the upgraded components, and the Ruger is going to be a lighter option. So if weight is a concern, you might want to take a look at the Ruger. If compatibility with existing parts and things like that is more of a concern, take a look at the Palmetto State Armory line of AR-10s. So again, both these rifles are going to come to market right around $1,100, $1,200, and the PSA being the more expensive of the two. If you have any questions about these two rifles, you can ask those questions down below. We get a lot of ideas from you guys for future videos based upon the comments you guys have. So feel free to comment down below, which of these two rifles do you like? Or is another AR-10 out there that you think would be competitive with these you would like for us to take a look at here on the Military Arms channel? Again, comment down below. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel, the best way to do that is become part of our Patreon family. Link in the video description below. Right here on YouTube, you can support us in the age of demonetization with the subscribe button that's right underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that button, support us here on YouTube in the age, again, of demonetization. Thank you for 18 years of support. Swing by, check out Copper Custom, and we'll talk to you guys soon.